Let's get stuck into pulling this breech apart. Be sad to see the E81 go because of how reliable they are, but we just needed more power. And it will no longer be the best sounding Brumby. You'll notice this whole job's done with like a couple of different spanners and stuff like that. I could not find any tools when I did this job. I had gearboxes out, engines out all around the workshop, and I couldn't find anything, so we just made it work with what I had. Just goes to show that you could fix this car with a brick on the side of the road. You'll notice all the shots are in a weird order. I had to try and make it look as streamlined as possible because the engine was in and out so many different times because of different issues we had trying to get parts and stuff like that. We couldn't get any parts the same day because nothing is open after hours when we're doing this job, so it took a lot longer than it should have, and we had to keep putting the engine in and out so I could measure different things and do different jobs at that time. So I've tried to put it all in a certain order so it makes sense if someone's following along to do this conversion. You notice the exhaust is still hanging there because the center of it was just seized as, and I couldn't really undo the bolts and I couldn't be bothered just breaking them off yet. The thing with the Brumbies, you can get to pretty much every bell housing bolt from the top too, which makes it pretty easy. I hate using the engine gantry, it is shit, but I had another engine with chrome. This gantry was built like 40 million years ago. This actually roamed the earth when the dinosaurs did, and it was about as good as it is now, back then. Now we'll smash this clutch off it. The clutch itself wasn't too bad, it was pretty glazed up. Every now and then it used to not disengage correctly, I'll say. I really needed a clutch in it for a long time, but it wasn't something I was willing to put effort into doing. It wasn't going to make it go any harder, so why bother? It didn't really slip, it just would fail to disengage every now and then. So we'll be using this flywheel again. We just got to modify it for the EJ. I only use impact sockets on the rattle gun, which is what I'm doing there. The chrome actually makes it more aerodynamic so you can rattle it harder. The thrust bearing in this was fucked as, which is real weird because it didn't make any noise when it was fitted in the car. But when I removed it there, it was horrible. In order to fix the engine, you must become the engine. So you just elongate the holes in the cross member, so the engine mount's going pretty easy. Check out Subaru's website, and they have a full write-up on engine conversions for Brumbies, and it tells you step by step on what to do and how to do it. Doesn't that EJ look good now it's all assembled? That red inlet manifold definitely added probably 70 horsepower to it. That's probably why it revs out to 40,000 now, because it looks like a Formula 1 engine. Is that a race engine? These are offset bolts that Subaru built, so the adapter plate will go on and it will line up with the EA gearbox. So EJ is just slightly off. Now, I was a little bit disappointed because I was going to pressurise the bell housing, so when I went through water it wouldn't fill up and then make the clutch slip. But they have this stupid air gap at the bottom of them, so you can't do it. So one day I might build a kit so we can block that off, so I can pressurise it to make river crossings a bit easier in it. There's no more clutch slippy underwater. So now we're just pressing out the old thrust bearing, putting the new one in. This was another mission to get a thrust bearing because I thought that was the only thing wrong in the kit at the time when we were fucking around with the clutch. Now you got to elongate the holes where your flywheel mounts to the back of the box. This sucked. I hated doing it so much. It looks like it was real easy in this video, but it took me hours and it was shit. And the die grinder I was using was crap. Ooh, look at that HRP merge. So just give the old pressure plate a hit off with some free juice I found in the old cupboard, and all it does is it just cleans the shit off it like you would doing brakes. If you use contact cleaner or something like that, you don't get the greasy patch like brake clean does. And then you let your apprentice line the clutch up so it's centered. I thought I actually had the tool to line it up, but I don't. It's for a different, it's for an EJ Subi actually, with the bigger input shaft. And I made my apprentice do it, so if it was wrong I could blame her when I had to pull the engine back out for the 100th time. Now we'll put the engine in for the final time. Then we made it look easy. So just give the engine a bit of a wind over, and then that way it lines your splines up in the clutch and the input shaft. Give it a wriggle. Oh, that's probably the best feeling you'll ever get, is when that actually lines up and goes in. Sometimes it makes you want to cry how long it takes you. Never wind it in on the bolts or you'll break shit. Now to whack the starter motor in, whack this wiring in that I forgot to film the part where I made it. Or I joined it in, I should say. Subaru made all the wiring for it. A fun fact for everyone that has a Brumby, behind this back wall here is where the original relay is for the fuel pump. That little relay right there in the center is for the original fuel pump. Now we won't need this because we're going to ECU control the fuel pump, courtesy of our Subaru harness. So I just decided to run a wire pretty much to where it picked up originally, and then that way I can use that little grommet in the back firewall to go to my fuel pump. But I picked the dumbest spot to mount it because it is so fucking noisy. It isn't rubber mounted yet. It will be one day when I get around to it. But there's another thing I also didn't film, is I ended up changing all the fuel lines and how it runs to the tank. I pretty much used the breather pipe which runs through the cabin because it is bigger than the original return line. and I altered the fuel setup inside the engine bay because it kept exploding the fuel filter and blowing lines off. But I didn't film any of that, so you just have to take my word for it. You were just measuring up the radiator to see where it goes. I picked an aluminium radiator because I like welding aluminium. I find it easier than welding other shit now. Still the same size as the original radiator. It's identical to the original one. It was cheap. I also didn't film measuring the bottom of it. Flared the ends of it so the hose wouldn't slip off if the hose clamp was a bit shitty or anything like that. It doesn't make it look good. This was not very fun to weld. In my brain I thought, oh, aluminium, I'm pretty good at that. But it sucked. It was shit. The weird angles and all that, and it was probably made from some weird Chinese aluminium, I'll say. It probably had about as much aluminium as it is I do myself. It just wasn't very fun to weld. I probably wouldn't do it again. But it still worked. It doesn't leak. It holds pressure, so can't complain too much. It just looks like it was done by a fucking gremlin or something. You can see all that black shit around it. That's how many times I stuck the tip of the TIG in it. Probably half a dozen times at minimum. I also probably should have put cardboard over the vanes so I didn't bend the fuck out of it to put my arm on it, but lucky it's my car and not a customer's. Oh, look at that, even still fits. Pretty good when you measure something and have to drive half an hour home to weld it and then come back to work just to fit it. It's pretty nice. So now I just plug the wiring back in. Fun fact, it didn't start for a while because there was one 4-pin connector that I didn't plug back in underneath the inlet manifold. It's a big yellow one, so make sure you plug that in, otherwise you'll fuck around for hours. Also didn't film, probably you're sick of me saying I didn't film. I removed the spare wheel carrier from the engine bay. That was a fucking cunt. I sat there and drilled out every fucking rivet and used a cold chisel. It was shit. You can see it's not there now. That's the reason, because this will be getting intercooler at one point. Top mount. I also noticed I cleaned up the spot where the battery was. I did make a battery box for it with a really little battery to sit right up front, and then I was going to build an airbox behind it. And what happened was I built a battery box and it was perfectly square, but dumb me didn't realise that I shouldn't go off the exact measurements of the battery, because once I built it, the battery didn't fit inside it. So that's why it doesn't have a battery box in it now, and it's just got that crappy old battery just chucked back in that spot. So there's been a noise in the Brumby and I thought I'd use my diagnostic dartboard to work it out. Turns out the wheel bearings are fucked in it, and also the a lot of ball joints. So I thought I'd just tack up a crappy shit exhaust so we could drive it. My welds are pretty good though. Remember to use very tight safety squints, because when that slag drops in your eyelid, oh, you'll know about it. Well, someone decided to throw my welding helmet and fucked it, so I had to use safety squints for the rest of it. What a beautiful exhaust. As you guessed it leaks absolutely everywhere. Finished. Now we'll pull out the old accelerator cable from the EJ81. We have to put the EJ1 in it out of the Forester and modify the firewall. So I just run this step drill bit through the firewall to get her up to size. And it's alive. It even has gears, moving forward and backwards. You can hear 47 exhaust leaks there, but it doesn't have any gaskets. Still doesn't have any gaskets to this day. Looks very clean at the moment, doesn't it? So there you have our Subaru now that revs out to like 15,000. Well, it sounds like that anyway. Now that's the last of all the footage we have of this vehicle. We're meant to do a 14-hour trip up to Yamba. That's the whole reason I've done the conversion. But I decided I had the shits on with the world, and we decided within one weekend that we'd move to Adelaide. So we packed all our shit and moved. The Brumby was used to move all the crap out of my shed. But other than that, it has not been anywhere since the conversion's been done. It's just been parked up. We did sound dead in the interior, which I do have some footage of, and I was going to put a full carpet kit in it to make it nice to take up to Yamba, but I got burnt on the carpet and it cost me $500 and it fit like absolute shit, and I was not very happy about it, so I refused to put that footage into the actual video. And the carpet kit now, I wouldn't even let my dog fucking sleep on it, it is that shit. So go check out Subaru Auto Electrics for all your Brumby needs. They've got everything right up, EJ conversions, lift kits, you name it. Lift kit's also my Brumby, so go check out that video if you're skeptical on it. And then go check out superlativo.com. Get some merch, support us so we can do some more shit like this, and we can bring the Brumby over to Adelaide and go take it on the beach or up the Adelaide Hills. Thought I'd do a little montage of the old E81 because it was the best sounding Brumby. Not so much anymore, but it still sounded sick. Enjoy, thanks for watching.